Hey, friends, I bet you didn't think you'd see me this soon after the last live broadcast. But hey, that's how we roll. In the age of censorship and deplatforming, we just spring up wherever we can and create havoc, us intellectual terrorists. Great to see that you're jumping online, guys. Many, many hundreds of you already. I'm actually pretty excited about this conversation coming up. And it's really at my request, because when I spoke to this remarkable lady some weeks ago, I was absolutely enchanted by what she has to say and what I believe her gift to the world is. I think it's going to really help to shape, in a sort of paradigm shifting way, shape the way that we view ourselves, and the way that we view the progenesis of our species. Very, very challenging stuff to get your head around, your mind around, your heart around. But that's what this Lazarus Initiative is all about. We are the Adamites. We are the Christed ones. We are the living men and women of the living soil. We understand how to tell the status quo to go and fuck itself. And more than all of that, we love one another, and we are loved by one another. Marguerite Rigoglioso, PhD, is the author of The Mystery Tradition of Miraculous Conception and director of Seven Sisters Mystery School. Now, wait for it. What are we talking about? We're talking about divine birth. It's immaculate conception, okay? The mechanics of immaculate conception. Divine birth as a human practice and as a mechanism by which aliens have come into this realm, have been birthed into this realm, avatars and alien hybrids. So I'm going to welcome Marguerite. Good to see you.
Thank you, Sacha. I'm so honored to be here.
Wow. Well, I'm honored to have you here. So we have 500 people online already, and the numbers will be jumping up shortly. We've got some slides which we've uploaded, and we can drop those in. You'll have to let me know when you want those in.
All right.
I am not equipped to hold conversation with someone as clever as you, so I'm just going to riff from time to time and ask stupid questions, layman questions, because I'm fairly good at that.
That's excellent.
But in the first instance, let's just begin by you explaining to my audience, to our audience, the mechanics of Immaculate Conception.
Yeah. So, basically, this is an ancient technology that has been going on probably for thousands of years, by which women can use their wombs to conceive children in various ways. Okay. We start out with the simplest process of parthenogenesis, meaning that the woman has the spiritual technologies to be able to engender androgyny within herself and create a divine soul. She becomes one with the goddess. She creates a divine soul. And then we have these later stage versions of the practice, whereby the woman starts engaging with disembodied astral male beings. At first, these situations were unbidden, unwanted. They were experienced as rapes. This is where we have the rapes of the maidens in the Greek tradition. But then the women start getting strong-armed into this practice over these millennia, and they start acquiescing and cultivating it so that they are willingly now engaging with these interdimensional beings, giving birth to some of the very patriarchal heroes that have wreaked havoc and caused the problems on the planet, such as Theseus, Perseus, and Alexander the Great, etc. Okay? So then we have a later stage where it's really degenerated now. The knowledge on the part of the priestess, the knowledge base has gone somewhat missing, and they need to have a male priest stand-in who will impregnate the woman by becoming the receptacle, the vehicle for this astral god. And the woman becomes pregnant. This is how the Egyptian pharaohs came online here. And then the males, because there's a sperm involved, the males are able to grab the child, grab the lineage, grab the names, and the whole practice becomes co-opted into the realm of the males. So that That is sort of a trajectory of divine birth. But when it is done in the absolutely proper, pure, magnetic way, where the woman, the priestess, is in her highest level integrity, we have Mary, one such as Mary, and she gives birth to one such as Jesus. And there are many, many stories of other women who have given divine birth with various, results, I would say. But the fact that this technology, this ancient high-level technology, which involves the interface with sound, the interface with light, the photonic light, the interface with your DNA, the interface with erotic desire, etc., etc., etc. Because this high-level technology can be sniffed out by the unfriendly beings, you then have this raping function, you have this hijacking function, and then when they have put the veil over this practice as being a biological impossibility, which started happening with the ancient and then modern medical establishment, then you have people completely unconscious as to the various ways and technologies that births can happen. And that's where we all become rife for the reptilians and so forth, and these hybrids, these gray aliens and so forth. And we see even in the ancient texts that these women early on were getting even their regular sexual relating with men interfered with by the beings known as the Watchers. All right, these interdimensional beings. This is in the Hebrew Bible. This is in other documents where these beings have a technology that they can beam right into the woman's sexual imagination as she is having sex with her husband. The woman is attracted to this being. He appears as a handsome man, and because of this technology, any impregnation that results is of the Watcher's child. Okay, and the way we know that is because the women, the pregnancies, as they would progress, tall oaks from little acorns grow. As this little bitty fetus would progress, and it would be born, it would turn into a gigantic being. These are the hybrids. These are the Nephilim. Okay, so divine birth is a means of bringing in great holy avatars to our planet. It's a means of, it is also a means that can be co-opted, and it can bring in this hybriding, because these alien beings know that no matter how high tech they are, they absolutely need the human womb in order to get through a hybrid that is ensouled onto this planet. And so this is the main message that I want to broadcast to human women today, the women of planet Earth. We have to become much more conscious about our wombs, its powers, what's going on, because we are the gardeners and we are the gatekeepers. If we don't want any more of this hybriding, if we don't want any more of these abductions, we are the ones who have to get conscious and say, no, we will use our wombs for certain things, and we will not use them for others. And you're not going to hoodwink us in the dream state, in the astral state, in our medicine states, whatever.
And you see, what I love about that is that speaks just to the Adam seed of that which is emerging right now anyway as the quanta of the human experience, the human condition, which is the diamond in the coal, the Adamite that is resurrecting itself, ourselves, from the fiction, from the realm of the dead. And that's what this time is all about. That's what this covidiacy is all about. That's what this diabolical leviathan lurching towards us with a lethal cocktail of poisons under the guise of being a vaccination that's going to save us from a virus that's so invisible and so stealthy that you have to go and have a PCR test up the nose to see if you even got it. It's that terrible, So all of this insane dialectic that's taking place civilizationally right now, what's being birthed through that is the diamond in the coal, the Adamite, the quanta, the Christed light And what you're talking about is the essential piece in bringing about that resurrection of Homo sapien into our Homo sapien luminal state.
Absolutely.
Is that we rescind, redact, revoke, retract permissions where they have not been granted, but they've been supposed. And what you're suggesting is that women in that sense are, and that to me is where the so-called divine feminine really stands in its own flame, is when it just says, get thee behind me, Satan, no
That's
more.
That's right. That's right. And you know, Sacha, this is truly about the dawning of the age of the womb, okay? Where women are starting to understand this miraculous structure of the womb, how it is a holographic representation of the entire universe itself, how everything comes out of it, and how on the human level, it needs to be cleared, cleansed, healed, and re-empowered.
Yep.
All right. It's for divine birth of avatars. It's also for, there are mechanisms that I teach about that I've received from the ancient palm leaf manuscripts that Sri Kaleshwar, a Hindu saint in India who has crossed over now, brought forth with mantras and yantras and philosophical practices that allow men and women together to create a divine child, conscious conception, but on a way that is, you know, of an astronomical level. And it's actually quite simple. It's a 2 mantra series. You know, if a conscious man and woman does this, you know, during the sexual act, and the woman follows up with this other mantra practice, the child has such a head start. You know, they're calling in a higher level soul, right? So there are many, many ways in which this divine birth is operating. And there are so many ways in which it has been taken over to bring the Illuminati onto the planet. You know, I mean, their bloodlines and so forth, I believe, are the result of, you know, Rosemary's Babies types of impregnations.
Yes.
All righty.
Yes.
You know, we
Yes.
you know, this is hair raising. It's horrifying, but we have to look at it because the veil has been put over the human womb and women have been taken away from it. And you hear all these stories about women who were pregnant for 3 months. It's documented in the ultrasound and all of a sudden she's not pregnant. That's an abduction. And then they're all like, oh, I don't know what happened. Well, maybe I wasn't pregnant. Hello. Maybe your fetus was taken away. You know what I'm saying? So this is all of a feather. And the point here that you're returning to about, you know, the Adamite, Mary is the absolute master par excellence of divine birth. She had millions of lifetimes. She also, her previous incarnation was Isis, all right, where she was already doing a different type of divine birth by using the sacred phallus, the sacred dildo, to engender a child with Osiris posthumously, all right? But by the time she becomes the Mary we know, she is able to do divine parthenogenesis herself. And one of the reasons is because this was a plan on the part of her family. In the infancy gospel of James that I study about in this book, the Mystery Tradition of Miraculous Conception that you mentioned, which just came out, we learn, yes, that Anne, her mother, was already a divine birth priestess and conceived and gave birth to Mary in a divine way. So the divine children are always avatars. They are always high-level supernatural beings of another order. You know, perhaps our original Adamite divine blueprint with 12 or 13 strands of DNA. But these people come in, Mary came in like this from her mother. This was a plan. These women orchestrated the advent of Christ to the planet. And that's the story that always goes missing. But the powers that be cannot quite get away without saying, well, our avatar did come through a virgin, but we're not going to say too much about that, which they don't. And then they redact, and you don't have, you know, very much of anything in some of these texts. But this secret text, this repressed gospel, the infancy gospel of James, which originally was called the birth of Mary, is a treasure trove. And the way I know about how to decipher all this information for the readers and, for humanity essentially, is because I did these other two books, The Cult of Divine Birth in Ancient Greece and Virgin Mother Goddesses of Antiquity, where I had literally, Sacha, truckloads of books coming back and forth from interlibrary loan for me to sift out and tease out what I just told you in 3 sentences at the beginning of this call about, the stages of divine birth, what was happening, how it was taken over. I knew the codes, the signs, the significators. And when I laid my eyes on this gospel about Mary, I said, oh, I know what this is saying. So finally now this book, and like you're saying, the timing is so very interesting because I wrote those other books back in, the early 2000s. They were published 2009 and 10. Now in 2011, this book on Mary, which consolidates all of that in a very readable way and now exposes the whole world, lifts the veil on Mary, is coming out now. Now, when we are in the midst of what you were just describing, this travesty of crisis that's been created on the planet, which used in the right way, as you are doing, is a deep initiation into fifth and higher dimensional consciousness.
Beautiful. So let's talk about the subversion of the Madonna, if you don't mind. I'm just kind of riffing on this, but I think it's an important one. And because most people under the age of 50 or 60 are certainly familiar with the iconoclasticism that the church and religious mind, so it was transferred from that field of expression of religiosity into mainstream media and entertainment and so on. You have these abominations like this creature here, who's just clearly one of the many icons that have been conflated into prominence. Immense wealth, immense celebrity, immense influence, the likes of which we've really never seen before as a species. We now have these icons being engineered, orchestrated, and plopped into the mainframe, and they carry with them very carefully crafted witchcraft, which, whether they're witting or not, and in that woman's instance, I imagine she's absolutely witting in the matter. But I've come from that pedigree myself. I come from a world of celebrity and moving in and around a lot of those people. I know a lot of those 7-star celebrities and have played with them and hung with them and enjoyed company and broken bread with and traveled around. And so I've been close to it, and I've seen how the ones that gave me the creeps, I didn't resonate with. I didn't move into that field. I would step back, and I wouldn't attend the awards ceremonies, and I wouldn't hang out after hours or backstage or go to the, I just wouldn't do it. I was always really, really good at following that thing in myself. And others who are very famous, who are not part of it, would speak in whispers about what's going on behind the veil, And I just wondered, what are your thoughts about the degree and the extent to which we have been cult programmed, especially younger generations, have been cult programmed by very deliberate subversion of these foundational archetypes that otherwise we would be led by them. Madonna comes in as a classic example of subverting all that is judicious and righteous and sacred about the Magdalene. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I would say that Madonna Ciccone is the least of our problems. Much bigger of a problem is the co-opting of the controlling of the image of the Madonna by a certain religion that shall remain unnamed. Okay, let's start with that, because they have got it all tied up as to how she looks, how she acts, her demureness, her virginity, which, by the way, virginity was a technology that was needed for this divine conception so as to avoid karma and any other types of energies with a male line and so forth, the woman needed to go straight to the Virgin. She needed to go straight to the Virgin Sophia, the mother goddess, in order to have this divine conception. But I'm really worried about the image that I grew up with as Mary, which prevented me from even wanting to get close to her. Who wants to be near that kind of, sexless, passive, let it be done according to thy will type of individual? No. But what I found, not only through this book, but through my other work, which is going to come out in another book and is already in my course, the Mother Mary Mystery Teachings. If anyone wants to sign up for that, it's on demand. I find out that she is an amazing, amazing high-level avatar. She is the highest exemplar of a human being that we can possibly have. She is a role model. She is a mentor. She was a healer. She was a prophetess. She was the mentor of the early Christed enterprise. She would mentor all those people and say, go forth and come back at Easter and tell me how it's gone to teach the message of Jesus about love, So that is the first level of distortion, how she's been handed to us, that I'm worried about. These other kinds of, interceptions and whatever, it's all such a mixed bag, Sacha, because part of it is women trying to throw off the shackles of that virginity that got imposed on everyone, right? Which it shouldn't be. It's only meant for women in the holy orders that want to do this type of thing. Yeah. And so it's become like just such a confused thing. Like, what's the Madonna? What's the whore? What is appropriate sexuality? What isn't? And I am trying to help with this conversation through this book about the meaning of virginity, the meaning of divine birth, the reality of it as a technology that gave birth not only to Jesus, but Pythagoras, Plato, right? The Augustus Caesar is said to have been born this way. And then, this doesn't even get us into the conversation of the Vestal Virgins, if we want to go there and talk about Rome, how this reptilian infiltration started there. Do we want to go
do that? Absolutely. In fact, that was the bit that when we first met, I got really compelled by what you had to say on that. So in the first instance, let's just start from the beginning on this. What is a Vestal Virgin? Just to explain.
The Vestal Virgins are a latter-day version of these Holy Order Virgin women, okay? They're in the Roman Empire. Now, they already had started in the Etruscan before Rome even started. It was, again, a holy order of women that were meant to have sex with astral beings so as to bring in high-level avatars. But what ended up happening, where Rome enters the picture, is with the story of Rhea Silvia, who was from Alba Longa, in Italy. That was when the order was there before the first king of Rome, Numa, brought the order to Rome itself. She was forced and conscripted into having sex with who? Mars. Okay, the god Mars, which right there is a mixed bag, because if we're looking at Mars, he's got his solar rishi aspect, and on the very planet itself, the solar rishi inhabit colonizations of the beneficial beings to humanity, the rishis, and then the reptilian and all sorts of other, infestations there. So it's a total mixed bag. She was strong-armed into getting pregnant by Mars, and then when the two children were born, Romulus and Remus, somebody got all nervous about this, threw her in chains and threw those children in the river to ostensibly make them die. And then they ended up being sort of picked up, but exposed to the elements so that they would die, all right, which tells us they are threatening beings to whatever interdimensionals are not liking something good to happen on the planet. But then what you have is the infiltration of Romulus and Remus themselves, okay? They start infighting because they are representing that mixed bag of the solar rishi and the reptilian. They start fighting, and the factions of Romulus kill Remus. Romulus is installed as the king, and then after him is Numa, who is actually an ethical man who interdimensionally connects with Egeria, his guide, his soul guide, and that may have also been a sexual relationship. And he establishes the order of the Vestals. He also establishes the Pontifex Maximus, the high holy priest, who becomes the controller of the Vestals. And you go from having 2 of them to 6. These are girls who were brought in from the patrician bloodlines at ages 6 to 10, and they have to serve for 30 years, 10 years learning their practices, 10 years practicing them, 10 years teaching the younger ones. They are conscripted. They must remain virgins. They must keep that fire of Rome lit, which is a representation of their own yoni womb power. So Rome, that becomes reptilian somewhere along the line in this whole story, is now siphoning off the womb power of these Vestal virgins. Okay? And woe be it if they let the flame go out, they'll be beaten. And woe be it if they violate their virginity, which 18 of them did. And they are treated as follows. They are put down in a chamber, carried publicly with veiled, put down in a chamber. The chamber is covered with dirt, and they're left with a little food and water so that they will die. All right. 2 of them committed suicide so as not to have that experience. But I can tell you that 2 of them, the occult nature of what they were doing is probably they were having sex with this Pontifex Maximus, or the emperor, which in the Christian era became the Pontifex Maximus. Okay. And then that title, Pontifex Maximus, was given to the Pope. Hello, connect the dots,
Yeah.
So, these women, I think, were being used in occult rites to engender some of these bizarre emperors that later came online, the Caligulas of the world and so forth and so on. And where we see this, and I write about this in this book, is with the rogue emperor Elagabalus, who was like this out of control guy that was revealing all of these secrets. He married this Vestal, Aquilia Severa, twice with an intervening marriage, because he said, why? He said, co-creating with her will produce godlike children. You see, he knew his stuff. He knew that these girls were being trained in this, and that he could engender an avatar type being through sex with them. Okay, so these poor girls, they were just completely used. And enter Mother Mary. Prior to 4 BCE, her mother Anne is giving birth to her. 12 years prior to that, because it's thought that Mary conceived Jesus when she was anywhere from 12 to 15. And I talk about her mechanisms in this book, okay? Yeah. And she's in the midst of the Roman Empire. And of course, the Roman Empire's hand, comes into the whole thing, with Herod going all up in arms when he finds out that 2 avatars have been born, because the soothsayers in Iran are scurrying over here. They're like, hey, we got info that these high level beings have come to the planet. And Herod's like, what? And there you have the slaughter of the infants, all the children under 2 years old, to try to eradicate them. But Mother Mary and Elizabeth, who gives birth to John the Baptist, they conceive in the same ritual, group ritual, you see, because these women were usually acting as a group. And they both hid the children successfully, and they were able to go on to have lives. But because we're in such this hybrid Nephilim type environment, of course these 2 beings, Jesus and John the Baptist, have to meet horrendous deaths. But luckily, because Jesus is the highest holy avatar, he used Khandana yoga and Parakaya Pravesh yogas to be able to resurrect his body. And it was Mother Mary's womb who did that, according to Sri Kaleshwar. Okay. They knew Parakaya Pravesh, all right, and Atma Khandana yoga, how to put a body and spirit back together after death. Yes, your precious Lazarus. You see, Jesus was already practicing Parakaya Pravesh, bringing Lazarus back to life. He had those means. We all would be able to have those means. And so it's through Mother Mary's womb. She literally put him on her lap, which is what that Pietà instinctively, the creator of the Pietà knew. She put him on her lap and she did these yogas and she brought him back to life. Okay, so this is the power of the womb. And this is the power of everyone's wombs. This is not just Mother Mary. This is not just Jesus learning Prakaya Pravesh. They are models for us to become the true Adamites again, the true Evites, I might say, right? You know, the true original template humans, maybe even before Adam and Eve, which were already, you know, probably co-opted to some level. The Lemurians, the Solar Rishi humans, right? We're trying to get back to this and back to our powers. So by bringing forth this book, I'm just trying to unlock a door for women and men to be able to access this information.
Beautiful. The Pietà here, one of the most beautiful images. Absolutely.
Right. And there she is doing it. Karakaya Pravesh, bringing him through her womb chakra. And they did a Kala chakra timing where they turn back time. Okay. This is high level magic. This is no joke. You know, this is a far cry from the pale 2-dimensional individuals that these people have been presented to us as wrapped up. You know, okay, the wrappings are coming off, not just Lazarus, but these people and all of us.
Yeah. So let's talk about the again, iconography and iconoclasticism of the religious construct, because that's the thing that really seeded the mutations in our true cognizance of the sacred. So going back to push the point here on the vagina and how that has been flipped into that, you know, so that is the one of the seminal icons that have driven the Gestalt for millennia. Speak to this, would you? What's going on here?
Yeah, you know, I mean, this is the gateway. The vulva is the gateway. And some of these artists, consciously or unconsciously, have been depicting the vulva when depicting Mother Mary, saying, hey, this is all about womb power. We're not talking about having to veil this, and she didn't give birth, and she didn't have erotic feeling, and you know, you have to have tremendous erotic feeling to conceive divinely. All right, this is like hot stuff. And anybody who goes into deep level meditation or goes into plant medicine meditation, perhaps under good circumstances, can have that experience of entheos, being at one with the God, which is also called ecstasy. Okay, so the vulva, the vagina, the womb, ecstasy, interdimensional intercourse all go together, because ultimately that parthenogenetic woman becomes one with the universe. That is a very erotic act.
Yes, yes. Okay, let's talk about circumcision. Let's talk about millions and millions of blessed young black and brown skinned girls having their clitorises severed off with surgical blades or rusty razor blades, as the income bracket may determine. That's a uniquely disgusting and abomination. Talk to that.
It's a nightmare. It's like the epitome of the denigration of the womb and the vagina. It is a completely programmed situation that then gets intergenerationally carried out, okay, through the program that gets imposed. This is a good thing. This is a cultural thing. This is what is needed. And of course, it's a horror show. You know, need I go any further with that?
Well, it just the business of getting people of the world to understand that aberrations that were brought in under the aegis of spiritual and religious morality and public health were the polar opposite. I mean, these things were brought in to essentially circumvent the human capacity to create in bliss and create in an orgasmic state, because it is the harnessing of the capacity of human beings to bring the pranic energy or the life force through oneself in a state of orgasm and to ideate. You can anchor patterns of perfection and begin to manifest heaven on earth if you know how to harness that sexual energy or that bliss peak wave during the orgasm. And, and I think that the Babylonian priesthoods have known for an awful long time that circumventing that capacity within the human family has been integral to them maintaining the status quo, which is where they are able to act as the essentially to harvest human creative potential and life force and sexual psychosexual emotional. That's an energetic form. Call it loosh, call it what you will, but these lower elemental forces and intelligence have known for millennia that to truly hijack humanity in this plane of existence and to be able to vicariously live through it, they had to hijack our capacity to engage the orgasm.
Absolutely. Almost as the number one thing that they had to go after. They are like sharks to blood with sexual energy. Okay. Mm-hmm. And they also needed to, many people have been saying, probably you as well, they needed to put a wedge between men and women. All right. So that now we all have contested relationships and arguments and we can't get together and it's horrible. So in restoring all of this at whatever level, we're going to be able to restore men and women, because from the wedge that they put between men and women and the takeover of the sexual energy, they then, they had to kill all the trees and cut down all the forests, because those are the conduits to divine information on a very physical level. They had to go after peoples of indigenous wisdom. You've been talking about this. Many people have been talking about this. Decimate, and not only decimate, but traumatize, so that if you're still left limping around, you're spending your whole lifetime licking your wounds rather than being able to get into co-creative orgasmic, partnership or whatever. And I personally believe that the orgasm was the point at which the woman would conceive in virgin birth fashion.
Beautiful. Speak about this image.
Yeah, there we go. This is a painting by, I forget who, but it's, 1600 something, in Italian. This is depicting Olympias, the mother of Alexander's sexual encounter with Zeus Ammon, the Egyptian form of Zeus, to engender Alexander the Great. And in this, her husband is spying it through the keyhole. And the Delphic oracle affirmed that Alexander was interdimensionally born, and that also the husband was going to lose that eye because he spied a woman's mystery that he shouldn't have, and he did lose that eye. Okay. Now, but look at this here, because I truly cannot even believe that this artist so captured this. This is an Anunnaki being. All right. An Anunnaki reptilian being named this god that she is cultivating this relationship with, because unfortunately she got degenerated, and she engages willingly in a ritual with this god to engender Alexander, who then is just this kind of, to my mind, a nightmarish type of creature on the planet who's going around, conquering the known world, whatever, and so on. Just like Heracles, another divinely born, who basically killed off the matriarchy. And, that image there of Zeus there, Sacha, I was looking last night, and I didn't talk to you about this earlier, but what do I find out in my own darn book? Cecrops, the first king of Attica in Greece, and Erycthonios, the first king of Athens, is talked about as having a reptilian lower half.
Okay.
Already talking about that the foundation of ancient Greece was made by hybrid beings. And what did Cecrops do? He eradicated the matriarchy. Women could no longer have the vote. Children were no longer cataloged through the mother's name, but now the father. It was a horror show. And this is the very foundation of ancient Greece. And he installs Athena, but a kind of a militarized Athena, who was already bizarrely divinely born by Zeus, because he had to take her into her body and then give birth to her through his head. He tried parthenogenesis. It didn't really work. And Hera was pissed off at that fact. And he also installs Zeus at Athens. So, the beginnings of ancient Greece are corrupted, right? All of this, beginnings of ancient Greece, the beginnings of ancient Rome, it's all problematic and rife with the story of the hybriding of humanity, a story that the veil is now lifting off of as many, many more people access the Akasha or work with their guides and so forth to really get what the human histories were. And I think what I'm doing here is a big piece of that. That's why I've just felt it was so important to women, especially, to know about this, because they need to start getting connected with their womb. And again, people can.
I love it. I love it. So let's draw connections. Okay, we're going to draw connections between this,
right,
between this,
right,
and this.
Yeah. So
and this. Wait,
exactly. So
I've not yet finished. One moment.
Sorry.
And the Nephilim.
Yeah.
We're threading all of these. We're threading all of these themes, and we're talking essentially. The archaeo-cosmological roots of humankind, all of it, and let's bring it into the fairly modern context.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
John D. Rockefeller, that lizard in a wicker chair, there, responsible about 100 years ago for all that we're facing today with the engineered orchestration of evil, with billions of human souls now being forced into mandatory this and mandatory that, vaccine passports and lethal cocktails under the guise of vaccines, and public health administration. Every ministry, every government, every high street collapsed, all the economy collapsed, detonated, billions of souls sequestered into their homes, shivering in fear for a stealth virus that in and of itself doesn't exist. It's all under the thrall of a satanic, Luciferian, reptilian, draconian dream spell, which this creature here essentially began when he weaponized human health and wellness and stole health sovereignty from humanity and used his inordinate wealth to subvert nutrition and then begin systemic poisoning of the entire planet through the agrochemical industries and the pharmaceutical industries. But this creature here is directly connected to this creature here, who's directly connected to this creature here. It goes on and on and on, and it's all, again, about the port of entry, is it
That's
not?
right.
That's your point. That's your point.
The dot that connects all dots is the womb. And the 0 point that is in the womb when it conceives. All right. And whether the actions and the helpers to that process are angelic, the angel Gabriels of the world, or whether they're demonic. That's the point. Women, we need to really resurrect this knowledge and these technologies and say no to this and not be strong-armed into giving birth to these beings who then are hybrided. And so they carry the valence and the missions of these other creatures. And then, the gray aliens, they are simply seeking ensoulment. So that's why they're trying all of their experiments with, different levels of, and I'll say it right here. This is what I got. People can figure it out for themselves. But the whole Asperger's spectrum thing are experiments running around on the planet that have gotten into women's wombs. And, if you say, well, are you saying that these Asperger's children are not human or whatever? It's like, none of us is human. Right. We've all had this tampering. It's a matter of degree. And so, the gray aliens they don't have a soul because they messed up through AI long ago, a road that we're already on. Some people say that they are us in a future timeline. Yeah. And they're like, how much human DNA, what's the bare minimum human DNA we need in order to get a soul? so that we can reproduce, reincarnate, and become eternal beings again. That's what all of this alien abduction is all about with them. Yes. Okay, they're just these little minions trying to like make it work for themselves. You know, these other hybriding projects are even more nefarious because they bring in those energies that you're describing.
Very good. So where to? I mean, to what extent, we looking back in history, do you imagine that all of the mothers who birthed the diabolical, draconian elements into the earth plane, do you believe that each of those mothers granted permissions willfully, or do you think it was all through trickster, dream spell, and different forms of subversion? What are your thoughts on that?
It was a mix. What I find from the ancient times, and I'm sure now it's the same, it's a mix. Some of the women are dead set against it, resist, and are killed. Some of the women are dead set against it and are strong-armed into it. Some of the women start acquiescing. Okay? Like, well, would it be so bad to get that vaccine? Would it be so bad? You know, I'll just make it easy for everyone. And I can still get the benefits of traveling here and there. And these women are like, I can still get the benefits of queenhood and this and that and the other thing. And so I'm going to go with it and I'm going to be powerful. And then, you know, there's people who don't even know what's going on. The contract on that level is a manipulation of free will, which beings are really good manipulating human free will. They know just how to do it, to make it so that you're actually agreeing at the last hour, right? Therefore, they're not violating cosmic law. Otherwise,
that's the thing.
Otherwise, they have to manipulate, because if they just come in and rape a woman without any seduction, they are violating cosmic law. So all of these rapes of the ancient women and modern women and whoever are all the last minute she gives some level of agreement. Okay. This is where we just need to know what's going on so that we can just say no to it and stop it. Okay. So there's a mixed bag of things going on. And I think that a lot of women are back. The virgin birth priestesses are back, and the satanic cultivators are back. All of us are here. You know, we've done one thing or another. And we are here to reckon with this karma and throw off this yoke once and for all. But we need the code of awakening.
So in that context, let's talk about the thread of Ariadne.
Well, you know, Ariadne, she was kind of bamboozled into this union with Theseus, right?
Yeah.
And it took Dionysus to kind of help her get over her heartbreak and her abandonment and the betrayal there. And Dionysus has at times been a friend to women, and he has at times been co-opted himself. Witness, and I'll give you the pièce de résistance story here that we went into a little bit privately. Nikaya. All right, what happened with Nikaya? She listen carefully to this story, everybody, and then there's a denouement with it, okay? Nikaya was a virgin priestess dedicated to Artemis. She killed dead a man who tried to rape her. Killed him dead. Now, Eros was like, I don't like that idea, and I'm going to sick Dionysus on you. So he kind of programmed Dionysus to rape this girl, Nikaya. And so Dionysus seduced her with medicine, with sacred wine, sacred water, which is hallucinogen, and impregnated her. This Nikaya is the woman whose name is given to the town of Nicaea, which is the place where the "we believe in one God the Father Almighty" doctrine came down through the Council of Nicaea, which really sealed in this patriarchal programming.
Oh, yeah.
It is on the back of a virgin priestess who tried to defend her virginity. Even a helpful male god got conscripted into this thing of raping her. And then finally, at least, they honored her by giving her a town name, which is often what happens with these women or their children. But right into that, go the claws. And now we have the Council of Nicaea, if anybody wants to pronounce it correctly.
Very good. Now let's just wind up this fabulous conversation. I've got a couple of minutes, as you know. I've got to bomb onto another broadcast shortly, but let's just finish up on for 2 minutes, if you don't mind, Marguerite, on this icon, this archetype.
I know. Bless her heart. You know, there are stories about what happened there. First of all, that the younger son is not even Charles's son. All right. I was told that by a prominent interviewer who said, oh, everybody in England knows that Harry is not, right? Is he the younger one? Harry is not the son of Charles.
Yes, and you don't need a prominent interview. You need to use your eyes. But yes, I go with my eyes.
And so what happened? She transgressed. She probably went outside of the boundaries of that ritual that she was supposed to have done in order to engender those children. This is my intuition. I really have no way of proving it. But for that transgression and others, she met her end.
Very true.
In a very strange kind of so-called accident where she died, but the driver didn't. I always thought that was weird.
That's very, very odd. Well, there's a whole bunch of kind of orchestrated Sabbatean dirty fingerprints all over that.
All over that. The tunnel, no less. The tunnel. You know, you can't make this stuff up. Like she dies in a tunnel. Yeah, no kidding. She died in a tunnel. They're trying to like trap her soul.
Right. And all of the, as I said, the fingerprints of the Sabbateans are all over the orchestration of that that death. And it's not over by a long chalk. I mean, all of those icons who met sticky ends are still very much unresolved within the zeitgeist. And I rather suspect that in the short days ahead, as we move into our ascendancy as a species, we're going to all have to recognize that what we thought was white has been black, and what we thought was
right.
white.
Because these beings create sadistic reversals with everything. Okay. And it seems to me that Diana could probably well use a large group ritual to free her soul.
Beautiful. That's exactly right. That's what I'm getting at. The true freeing of it is when the greater collective, the Gestalt, is able to actually face the icon, the archetype, the spell and the bond that's been cast by the archetype of Diana, for instance, which is the Isis. And so many civilizationally, it's the same icon in the same way that Lazarus is a similar repeating feedback, universal feedback icon, in the same way that the Messiah is. And it just seems to me that now we're at that epochal point where the collective is now not only able to, but must resolve these greater unresolved aspects of the greater self. Marguerite, I'm delighted to have spent time with you, and I suspect we're going to have to pick up another conversation and take it further. I've had no chance today to entertain questions from people, and there's a hell of a lot of questions here. So,
well, I'll just say one last thing, Sacha. We need to come to the point where you're saying so that we can become the Mary. We can become the Christ, right? You're saying this, but this is a DNA excursion. It's a consciousness excursion. It's an energetic excursion. It's an ascension, inscension, I call it. And all these things that you're doing, that many others are doing, that I'm doing with these books, are to lift off veils so that people can really start accessing deeper and deeper levels of this information for themselves. Indeed.
Thank you, Marguerite. Lovely spending time with you. The second time I've had the delight to be in a conversation with you, and I very much look forward to the next time. Thank you so much. And to the audience of about 1,500 people, who stayed with us for the duration. Thank you for that. And my night's not quite over yet. I might be popping up later on online again. I have to do this kind of flash mob broadcasting. I've been reduced to that now. I'm not allowed to announce anything. Just go live on the drop of a hat. But I have a trusted audience out there of conscious, intelligent, beautiful souls. Thank you for joining us. Much love to you all. Please check out the LazarusInitiative.com. Sign up if you want to stay abreast of what's happening there. If you just want to stay in touch with me, sachastone.com. Subscribe there to my weekly newsletter, which hasn't been out, but the next one comes out this weekend without fail, or Deborah takes a whip to me. And just very quickly, Marguerite, where can people get hold of you?
They can go to sevensistersmysteryschool.com, SEVEN. All right.
Great. And they can also check out this.
That's right. They can purchase that wherever books are sold. Amazon, my publisher, Inner Traditions, Barnes & Noble, etc.
Beautiful stuff. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you as well. Bye now.